Welcome to Baseball Beyond Borders webinar series. These webinars are a way to stay connected with community while highlighting life beyond the foul lines. We will continue to offer these webinars in alignment with our Moving Beyond 12 9-inning framework that connects student athletes' passions to their academic future. Last week, we were joined by Mariner broadcaster Dave Sims, who honored a legend on Jackie Robinson Day, a person who has changed the trajectory of baseball for African Americans. And I'll just say not only for African Americans, the trajectory of baseball for all. That is Jackie Robinson. Well, the baseball community of Seattle has also lost a legend a few weeks back in Coach Ron Bolton. Ron was an inspiration. He was an advocate and a lover of all things baseball. Our hearts grieve as Coach Bolton transitions into eternity, but yet we rejoice knowing the legacy that he leaves behind. That legacy includes myself. It includes E.C. Parker. It includes Rick Pitts. It includes Derek Elliott, my brothers, Sean and Ronnie Gates. It includes Derek Wheeler-Smith. It includes Corey Dillon, for those of you that may not recognize that he was a phenomenal baseball player while attending Franklin High School. But Coach Ron Bolton had an impact. And that is why we do what we do. So we honor his life, his legacy as he transitions. But Baseball Beyond Borders, thank you for joining us and joining our village today. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. Today is a live Q&A session with University of Washington professor, former BBB board of director, a community advocate and a trusted friend, a graduate from the prestigious Garfield High School, and Dr. Alexis Harris. Dr. Harris, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So this conversation will be facilitated by our own king, Dylan Cooper, who will be transitioning into post-secondary pathways next school year. He is a senior attending Kennedy Catholic High School. Should you have questions for Dr. Alexis Harris, we ask that you use the chat feature, and we will accommodate all questions in a timetable available. So with that, Dylan, I'm going to ask you to take it away.
All right, Dr. Harris, my first question is, how did you first get into teaching? How did you get into it?
Sure. Yeah. I just want to say one thing at the start is that I am a University of Washington professor, but I don't represent the University of Washington in any way in what I'm saying here today. I also work with our athletic department, and in no way am I trying to recruit anyone. I don't have any of that capacity. So I just want to make that very clear. So I am a Garfield graduate, graduated in 1993, giving my age, at Garfield High School. And I was always really interested in issues related to young people and juvenile justice issues. So I always thought I was going to be a judge or an attorney. And that was my idea. I'm also a first generation student. My dad had a GED, my mom had a high school diploma, so I knew nothing about college whatsoever. I just knew I was supposed to go. So I thought that if I go to the University of Washington for 4 years, and then I would go to law school, that would give me a career. A big role model for me, which probably none of you young people know who this is, was Claire Huxtable. Do you know, Dylan, do you know who Claire Huxtable is or was?
No
okay,
clue.
so she was the mom on the Cosby Show. And I wanted to be her, and she was an attorney. So I thought that's the path I was going to take. So I went to the UW. I thought, because I didn't know much about majors, I just thought I had to major in political science, so then I could go to law school. And I took a political science class, and I absolutely hated it. And I didn't know what to do, but I was also fortunate enough to be in a sociology class with Professor Al Black. And he taught a class called Social Problems, and that just opened the world to me. I said, I want to do what he's doing. I want to study and research and talk about the issues, and then try to work with people who make policy to make the world better. I was pretty naive, and I still am, but that was my goal. So I took advantage of a lot of different programs on campus and learned more about graduate school and getting a PhD. And I applied for PhD programs. And got into some, and I ended up at UCLA and was there for 5 years. And I studied the juvenile justice system. I regularly went to courts. My main court was in South Central LA, Kenyon Juvenile Hall, and then the court in East LA, Central Juvenile Hall, where I looked at court hearings about young people and how judges and prosecutors talked about young people and made decisions about their lives. So that's sort of how I became at least a professor with a PhD. I was very fortunate to come back to the University of Washington and start as a professor in 2004. And I just sort of worked my way up to getting tenure, so they can't necessarily kick me out now that I have tenure. So that's sort of how I became a teacher and who I am today.
Awesome.
or I kind of stepped on the second question, but I can sort of talk about being a teacher and what I do as a professor at the University of Washington. A lot of people just think we teach and that's it. And our world is much more detailed than that. So we have sort of three sets of responsibilities. We teach, and teaching, I teach generally large classes, intro to social classes, and usually a lot of freshmen in 300, 350 room classrooms like in Kane Hall. And so I teach those classes, but we also do a lot of mentoring with students and support for their master's program or dissertation, and then also work with undergrad students. And then so that's one chunk. Another chunk of my time is spent on research. So right now I'm what's called a PI, a principal investigator, on a 5-year, $4 million grant. And we're in 8 states collecting data. And now we have the data, and now we're writing peer-reviewed publications. So this is research that goes into publications that hopefully, in my mind, will affect public policy. So teaching, research, and then service. So we do a lot of service on campus within the department, working on different committees. What's my other service? I work closely with a program called GOMAP, Graduate Opportunity Minority Achievement Programs for our graduate students of color. I do certain committees. So I'm on a committee right now where we're hiring the new University of Washington Chief of Police. So there's a lot of different service activities that faculty do as well across campus. So we teach, we do research, and we do a lot of service. So that's sort of how I spend my my professor time.
Cool. Another question I have is, can you elaborate on the work you did at UW for faculty athletic representative?
Yeah. So I've just spent my first year as being what's called the FAR, the Faculty Athletic Representative. A lot of our time is sort of on a percent time. And so 50%, half of my time now involves working with our athletic department. I don't work for the athletic department. I report directly to our president, Anamari Kalse. But the whole aim is to uphold the academic integrity of the university in our athletic department. And so there's sort of 3 roles I serve. One is dealing with compliance, which is really interesting. I deal internally at UW with waiver issues. So if a student goes into the portal and wants to transfer, or a student's coming to the University of Washington, I also sort of I sit in and read about, give input on any issues regarding violations. We report every single possible violation to the NCAA. And so I'm in on those conversations. So that's one thing, compliance. Another realm is student health and wellness, is the part that I really like, is to make sure that our students, I believe 100% that if our students are admitted to the University of Washington, that they deserve to have an amazing education, and an education that they want and can use moving forward. So that's what I get to do. I get to sort of help students if they have issues with professors or any academic issues or any sort of health and wellness issues that they might face. And then the third thing is sort of weird, but I represent the University of Washington to the Pac-12 Council and the NCAA. And so I do that along with our athletic director, our AD, our senior women advisor, and the university president. So I get to have this neat sort of perch in having conversations with our peers in Pac-12 about athletic and academic related issues, and then also on the NCAA level. So a lot of my time is spent with calls and emails and informational sessions and things around that.
What advice would you give an inspiring student athlete transitioning to the collegiate program?
Yeah, so I would have a lot of advice. Obviously, I think grades are the most important thing. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I think having good grades, working on your grades, being that whole student, and I know that being both leading student athlete on the field or the court or the water, wherever you sort of play your game, is hard work. But in addition, you have to put that hard work in the classroom, because you're not going to get into a leading D1 university without having that academic performance as well, because it's really tied, from what I've seen, coaches see the connection between your ability to learn and perform in the classroom with your ability to perform on the court or the field. And so that's really important. So grades are key. You know, your GPA, getting in terms of applying, your GPA is very important. Your SAT or ACT score is really important. Also, your personal statement is important. Making sure that the university sees what type of person you are. And what type of goals you have, even outside of your sport that you play. Universities, we want to know that you're committed to your academics, right? And that you're not just coming in for one and done, but you're coming in to get an education. So what are you going to do? And even if you are fortunate enough to go to the pros, depending upon what sport you're in, that career is only going to last so long. So what are you going to do after that career? So we want to hear those stories in your personal statements. Many universities have moved away from just looking at GPAs and SAT scores and have moved to a holistic review where we actually have 2 or 3 people reading every single application. And so that statement is what sets you above that GPA that many people have, right? It lets us know who you are and why you are a good fit for the University of Washington, and the University of Washington is a good fit for you. Another thing I think is so important is character. And I don't know how much they talk about this in high school or middle school, but having good character, being a good person. How can you demonstrate your character in your statement and in your activities? Coaches talk about going out and talking to everyone in your school. They talk to the security guard. They talk to the lunch people. They talk to the teachers, and they will say what type of young person you are. And so having good character and not having stuff come up from the past that might be used against you and might taint you as a risk. Is what universities are going to stay away from. So someone who listens well to authority, someone who's a leader in the classroom and on the court sort of shows what type of character you have. And I think also something that I've often heard people talk about is somebody who has coachable skills, somebody who's coachable, who actually listens to people in authority and responds in a certain way. Maybe you don't always believe that. I don't know. I'm not an athlete. So I can't give it. I was trying to think of an example and I can't come up with one quick. But someone says maybe you need to work on your crossover or something. I don't know. Or your pitch. I don't know. Right? But do you listen? Maybe you push back a little bit and say, well, why can't I do it this way? But you try to do what your coach is asking you to do. Same thing in the classroom with students. You know, students come to me, how can I do better? And I tell them, read this article, think about this question in a different way. Well, if you come back to me and you haven't done that, I'm not going to be very impressed with the type of student you are. I won't see that commitment where you really want to succeed. So I think someone who's coachable, both learning in the classroom and outside of the classroom is advice that I would give to students to start thinking about.
Yeah. So leading off last question. So what are your keys to success that you can share with us?
So I like my kids. I have 2 kids, 9-year and one who's 9 and one who's 12. And we try and have like themes, and we talk about different mottos for the year. Yeah. And my motto for this year, the last year or so, has been grit, grind, and grace. Grit, work hard at whatever I do, have my passion, put my head down and do the work, even when it's hard. Grind is related, right? I've got to be consistent every single day. Example now, COVID, pandemic, you know, we're all locked down. I eat a lot. I'm an emotional eater. So what that means is I had to get my butt up at 7:30, come downstairs, get on my bike and ride for at least 45 minutes. So I have my goals right here, my cycling goals, my HIIT goals. Like, you have to grind if you want something, right? You set that goal and you grind it out. So grit, grind, and then grace. And grace, I mean by that, is giving space, forgiveness, recognizing that people are coming from different points in this moment in their lives in different contexts, recognizing that I need to give myself grace at times. Like, sometimes maybe I'll give myself a day or 2 a week off to not do these workout goals. And that's giving me grace, recognizing where my body is, and giving other people grace. If someone's mean to me or short with me, I don't take it personally, but I give them grace for them to process whatever's going on in their space. I don't lose anything by giving somebody else grace. So grit, grind, and grace, I think, are sort of my mottos for the last my goals for the last few years of my life, actually, for things that I've gone through personally and professionally.
Yeah, and I think it's easy given. But
Yeah.
that was all my questions. Now I can ask my lightning questions now.
My scary part. Okay.
Well, hold on, Dylan. Hold off. Well, let's go right into some of the questions from the attendees. We do have a few out here before we get into the lightning round, because that's the fun part.
Okay.
So one question came from an attendee, and it says, it sounds like your path to a career was really started in that sociology class you took. As a professor, how have you observed students make this career path decision? What do you think is the best way to find the best path for you?
Oh, it's a great question, because it's hard to find your passion. I see students struggling because they want to find their passion. They know that that's the right thing to do. I will say that my passion actually came from being a student at Garfield, and the different populations, the different students, the different issues we talked about. It was an amazing space to meet people from all different walks of life and to have really engaged conversations, and find my voice, which was really key for me. But students, I often tell them, you know, what gets them excited? Like when you read your Twitter, your Facebook, I don't know what you read, Instagram, whatever it is, what gets you excited? What are you interested in? What topics? And then sort of break it down from there. Like, are you interested because you want to learn more? You want to teach about it? You have questions? And then think about the different career paths that you could sort of engage yourself to be around those issues. And I always tell students when they get to college is, once you kind of identify the types of careers that you might be interested in, then go find people, and I help them find connections with people who have those jobs, and then interview those people. You know, what type of education did you have? What type of degree did you have? What type of internships did you do? Do you like your job? Is there something you would have done differently? So just really, because that's what a friend of mine, a mentor of mine, had me do when I was in college. And I interviewed some lawyers, and about this time that I was making the decision between going to law school versus grad school, I really decided that for me, not for, you know, this, you might have a different perspective, but for me, I realized I didn't want to be an attorney in the system. I wanted to study it, and try and change it. But not for me, my heart would be too heavy, I think, dealing day to day with those issues. I wanted to study it from the outside. So I definitely encourage, start small. What makes you excited? What questions do you have? And then think about the possible careers, and then find someone that can help you hook up with people in those careers and start asking questions, interviewing people.
Good. Here's another question that comes from Facebook Live. It asks about, and be hypothetical in your response, I'm sure, how many issues a year do you deal with when engaging with student athletes, specifically grades versus core classes? There's also one around character and social media.
Yeah.
I think we didn't talk about social media. We didn't talk about the likeness and image.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the grades issue, so I've only been doing this for a year. At the end of, well, not even a whole year yet. At the end of every quarter, I work with, we have an amazing support staff, academic support staff. We go through every single student's grade and check what their GPA was in every class, their total GPA, their credits that they have to make them eligible for moving forward. Are there any issues? So at the university that I'm at, there's a very detailed support system for every single student. And yeah, sometimes there are students who are not eligible for the following year or for the quarter, and so we have to figure out what was wrong and make sure that they can be successful. The second question, I know the NIL, but what was the sort of middle question? Oh, social media.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think in general it's important. I mean, sometimes I lapse off and I start talking too much about something in terms of politics, and I know I need to rein it in. Social media is important. I don't think for admissions, people would look academic. So there's separate things, right? So once a coach wants you, you can, commit on the commit day to a university, but that doesn't mean you're admitted to the university. So there's two different stages. One, there's a coach that wants you and you decide to sign and they give you a scholarship or a partial scholarship. And the other then is that you have to go through university admissions. And at the university I work, they're totally separate, right? So you have to be academically eligible in most circumstances. So, you know, on the coaching side is maybe where the social media might come in. But I can't speak to that too much because I'm not in those decisions at all. NIL, name, image, and likeness, is a big issue. And basically what it is about is amateurism status. And so say that I'm a softball player and I play at the University of Georgia, and somebody wants me to do a commercial for them. I'm in my University of Georgia gear, so I look like I'm a softball player, and I say, come buy cars from this person. And I got paid for that. That would, according to the NCAA rules now, that would violate the amateurism status, and I would no longer be eligible to be an NCAA student athlete. Now there are currently discussions, both everywhere, in the 9th appellate federal courts discussions, cases around NIL, in our state legislatures and in our federal legislature right now around lessening up on the name, image, and likeness rules. And so the NCAA has not wanted to engage in these conversations, but they have to now at this point. And there's a lot of issues about it. I mean, I think the key issue with NIL is, well, one issue is a slippery slope. So do we pay for play? Every student athlete who's playing, do we pay them money? Or do we only pay students who are in sports that are revenue generating sports? And how do we determine which ones? There's so many dimensions to the issue. I don't think we're ever going to go to pay to play, but I do think, you know, a big theme is making sure student athletes are treated exactly the same way as non-student athletes are. And if I'm a non-student athlete right now and I'm in an engineering class and I come up with some project and I could put a patent on it and sell it, if you're a student athlete, you can't do that, right? And so you were not treating student athletes the same way. So they're trying to find a happy medium. And another issue is boosters and recruiting. How do we keep the money out of recruiting, right? Because you could have someone at, I don't want to use a local example. I don't know, someone at, you know, Superway selling something cool and work with, you know, I'll beat up on Georgia, University of Georgia, and say, you know, if you come and play for this school, we'll give you $1 million contract to do a commercial for us, right? And so that makes it dirty, the recruiting. And so we need to make sure that the money stays out of recruiting. So it's a big issue that's, I think in the next year, we're going to have some serious changes and movement on that.
That's good information. A couple other questions too.
Oh wait, but can I just say one thing too?
Yep.
That it's so important that you do not take money or take anything free while you're a middle school, high school student. So not even free training. You can't take any services, any money, any product. Otherwise, that could ruin your NCAA eligibility and you couldn't play. It's really, really important that you put up some boundaries because there's a lot of people who want to take advantage of our student athletes, and I've seen it happen.
That's good. That actually was segueing into the question of that a Facebook Live attendee had was best advice for a freshman student athlete.
Freshman
I think high school. I'm assuming they're talking high school freshman student athlete, but we can do both. Because okay. Another question that came in was from my good friend and Dan Wilson, who was watching and observing Major League Baseball, Mariner Hall of Famer. What are a couple skills that help student athletes get through their first year of balancing studies and Division I sports?
I mean, you want to listen to your coach, but you want to listen to your professors as well. I would make sure most universities have built based on a great model that started in the local area of student athlete academic support services. And so you want to seek them out if they haven't already sought you out, and make relationships with your academic support people. Make sure you listen to them. They're going to tell you, if you have to be strategic about what types of classes you take in season, what you can really do when you're in season, and off season take harder classes. I'm not saying always take easy classes, but I'm saying be strategic about when you take certain courses that you know are going to be difficult. Put your head down and do both work. It's hard. You know, some schools are set up on quarters, and so depending on your sport, you play games before the academic semester starts. This is college. Some are at different times. I'm talking about college, when you go visit a college that's recruiting you, ask them, what type of academic support do you provide to me? What happens if I have a big game on Friday and that's the same day that I have a midterm? How do you negotiate that? And so, you know, if the university is willing to engage with you and talk to you, you know that they have a game plan. But I'd say in terms of being successful in general, what I tell freshmen in college, and I can go to freshmen in high school too, actually the same thing, is make sure I think the smartest people in the world are the people who ask questions, right? If you have a question, ask and get support. Figure out how you can do better and what you need to do better. So when you're at college, know your TA's names, right? Your teaching assistants' names. Know your professor. Go to office hours. We all are mandated to have a certain hour or two office hours where you can come into our office and ask us questions. Do that regularly so I know who you are. So I think about you when I'm grading. I'm be real. Right? Like, do I know that they're really thinking about these questions that they're writing this essay on? Again, I don't do anything special for student athletes. I don't do anything special for anybody. But look, if they come and make a connection and I know you're invested in your education, then I'm going to think differently about you. We're real people. That's the same for high school. Make relationships with your teachers and let them know that you are going to be successful. You just need the keys to be able to get there.
Good. And I think that was, so that best advice for a freshman student athlete was specific to a high school student. And I think you might've touched on that. So thank you for that.
Sure.
The last question that I think I seen was, what are some of your favorite books?
Well, I could just put my book up right here. Sorry, I had to do that. I always have it right here. I hope everybody else is laughing. So I wrote a book on the criminal justice sentencing. It's called A Pound of Flesh. I love anything by James Baldwin. I recently, I'm looking, some of my favorite books are behind me. Americana by, let's see, let me grab it real quick. I love this book, Americana, by, I can't pronounce her name, Chimamanda Adichie, was really good. I actually just had my daughter read, I love John Steinbeck. Growing up, I read a lot of poetry by Langston Hughes. My dad was older, and James Baldwin, but I also found John Steinbeck. And so I didn't talk about what I studied, but I studied race, social stratification and inequality. So race and racism in society. And for me, James Baldwin and Langston Hughes gave me a great foundation, but John Steinbeck also introduced a poor white people's experience and allowed me, of Mice and Men, Tortilla Flat, Grapes of Wrath. I love those books as well.
Good, I appreciate it. I'm sure the one that I would ask you to read, if you haven't already, is by Anthony Ray Hinton, The Sun Does Shine, How I Found Life and Death, How I Found Life and Freedom on Death Row. So we had the chance to meet Anthony Ray Hinton after he was exonerated and released, and he came out and threw the first pitch at the Seattle Mariners game. Thank you, Dan Wilson, for making that happen. But it was inspiring for me to talk about one who had to go through 30 years of death row to come out and tell me and teach me about forgiveness.
Oh, we just watched Just Mercy, which was powerful.
Yes.
And his case was highlighted at the end. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, now we're going to go right into the lightning round that fulfills all the questions that came forth from that. So Dylan, you want to go ahead and take the lightning round?
Yep. All right. First question is, who's your greatest baseball player of all time?
I have to go with Ken Griffey Jr. just because he played while I was growing up. So.
That's mine too.
Okay, good.
Favorite food spot?
Food spot? Oh, in Seattle, Island Soul. That's totally like our family restaurant. In Columbia City, we love Island Soul.
Favorite athlete?
Serena Williams.
What is your best memory?
What?
Best memory in college?
In college? It's just the total memories I have with my sorority sisters. I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So anything with my SANS, my line sisters.
Favorite artists?
Okay, so I'm thinking I like Mary J. Blige, Stevie Wonder, Anthony Hamilton. Those are my favorite.
Awesome. That's all I had.
Okay.
Oh, well, yeah, I think I got one for you.
Shoot, okay.
You know, I'm always going to come one. Favorite moment at Garfield High School?
Okay, so I thought about this, and And I didn't want to say it because it sounds, I want to say in a humble way, but I have a twin brother, as you know, who played baseball for Garfield. And we were both crowned our senior year Mr. and Mrs. Bulldog. And it was just a really neat, yeah. And people didn't know we were siblings, but it was a really neat moment because I'm a nerd, as you can tell. And I wasn't, I wasn't a cheerleader. I did volleyball, but I wasn't like an athlete or anything. And so it was a really neat experience that like so many different types of kids like supported us, and I appreciate, and they supported a nerd. So I that always made me feel good.
Wonderful. So since we are supposedly supposed to be in baseball season, we're asking, what would be your 2020 walk-up song? If you were to step up to the plate, what song would play in the stadium?
So a song that on my playlist when I work out in the morning right now is, I told my husband he hadn't heard of it, but it's Mary J. Blige and Nas, Thriving.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of it, but Thriving. Yeah.
That's a good song. Good choice.
Yeah.
All right. My final question, and I know you're going to hate me for this, but that's okay. Who is your favorite brother-in-law? Charlie, David, Kari, or Joe?
I can't do, well, actually everybody knows. Everybody knows my little baby brother is Joe Hampton. So yeah, so I'm not gonna, So that's when I met you, was through Joe, when you guys were about 11. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I can't lie. Joe Hampton.
Oh, right. Well,
He's
Kari, Kari, Charlie, David, no offense.
Are all great guys. All great
you.
guys. Brother-in-laws, fathers, husbands, all great men.
That's
right.
right.
I've been blessed to be in a family with a lot of great men.
Absolutely.
And women. And their wives are great too.
I want to thank Dr. Alexis Harris for sharing her story and wisdom to support student athletes as they transition to college. Thank you, Dylan Cooper, for facilitating the dialogue. Be sure when we complete this call to finish the survey. There's a survey that should be accessible at the end of the call that will pop up on your screen. We do want to say join us this Thursday, April 23rd at 6 p.m. as we talk with Seattle Mariners outfielder Kyle Lewis, a member of the 2020 Soul Patrol, as we say. So stay connected to our social media platforms for the link to join. Again, Dr. Harris, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Give my love to the children that probably are watching, hopefully, and hopefully tell Jalen I want him to facilitate a call with me one time. So just one day he'll facilitate.
Definitely. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate sharing my story.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Dylan, thank you. And we'll see you on Thursday. Take care, everybody.